Hey there, welcome to Everyday Moodlings. I'm your host, Jeree Parks, and today we are actually going to be working with the Gelli plate. Now let me back up and give you just a little bit of explanation about why we're working with this week. Back in September, our challenges were all surrounded around our favorite things. And then in October, we kind of moved into Halloween and fall and all that good stuff. In November, I wanted to concentrate on things that were new to you, new to me, new to you. So our first challenge is to use the newest tool that's in your studio or your craft room, scrapbook room, whatever you call it. For me, that's the Gelli plate. Actually, I've had it for several months now, but I've not done anything with it because I wanted to videotape my first time using it. And there's a reason for that. Okay, so I figured out I've been teaching online now for like 12 years. Hard to believe. And one of the things that we hear over and over and over again is people who buy what they consider expensive tools, and the Gelli plate is not necessarily cheap. It's not the most expensive tool we can buy, but then they never use them because they're afraid. They don't know where to start. And one of the things I always remind them is everyone starts in the same place. You start at the beginning, and sometimes it works out and sometimes it doesn't. But the only way you learn how to use a tool or a color medium or a product is to actually use it and learn either by taking classes or reading online or videos or books or idea books or magazines, and then start to use those ideas. So that's what I'm doing today. This is my first time using it. I did watch a couple of videos. I didn't want to watch too many and have it kind of affect what I was doing. Right out of the bat, I did run into a small problem. There were some bubbles on the surface. Then I read about that on the internet, and seems like that's a pretty common problem. I still haven't quite figured out how to store it yet. I'm going to go over everything I'm going to be using in a moment here. So I need to read just a little bit more about that. I'm sure someone watching this video will share with me their best tips or practices. I did read about how to get the bubbles out, so I did that last night, and then I put the plastic back on top of it and I have bubbles again. So it's okay for me because, as you know, when I make a background like this, I never use the whole background. I always chop it up into pieces, and so I think if there's a few bubble marks on there, I'm not going to really worry about it. So what are we using? Well, first of all, we got some paper that I'm going to be using to do my monoprints on. And I got a lot of white cardstock in here. We'll use a lot of that. I'm not a big, huge fan of using white cardstock. I mostly prefer to use watercolor paper, but for this, my first go through, I think I'll just use cardstock. But I also wanted to use some pattern paper because I felt like I could really do some fun things with that, particularly black pattern paper, because it's so hard to get anything on there that has any kind of impression to it because it's black. It absorbs all the colors. So I thought it might be fun to work with this. So this is basically what we're going to be doing our monoprints on, or what I'm going to be doing my monoprints on. And then I gathered stencils. Like, I won't use all these stencils, but I have a ton. I saw people used embossing plates, which I think is an awesome idea, but I decided I did not want to clean the paint off of my embossing plates. So I actually just emboss them onto white cardstock. The fun thing about doing it this way to make your impressions in the paint is then the paint is on this cardstock and I can use this in projects as well. I have a few stamps that I'm going to use, not too many. It kind of gets back to using your embossing folders. I really am going to have to clean up the stencils. You're seeing a theme here, right? I don't really like to clean paint off of things. I have some paint scrapers. These are Martha Stewart's. Gelli Arts has a set that they sell as well, but I already had these. So I have a ton of die cuts that I'm going to use. I made some, made way too many, I'm sure. Some die cut strips, and then I also have just some different die cut images, just flowers, hearts, some birds, and just random things really that I thought would be fun in there. And then the last thing I pulled out, I don't know if I'll use this or not, these are masks by Prima. Actually, I've never used them before. And I thought that might be kind of fun as well to use on there. I have just some scrap paper to cardstock that I'll use to kind of clean things off with. Do my double printing or ghost printing. I also have some deli paper for that same reason. I'm working on top of wax paper. You could use freezer paper, you could use your craft mat, whatever you want to use. And then of course, we have to have some paint. So I just grabbed a variety. Some of these are more expensive than others. I didn't want a ton of different colors to work with. I kind of wanted to keep it pretty simple. The last thing I pulled out was the matte medium because I saw some people working with that and I thought that looked like a fun. I love doing resists, and so they were doing a resist with matte medium, or actually I think they were using gel medium. I'll probably pull that one out too. Matte medium doesn't create quite as big a resist as gel medium, so I'll probably pull out my gel medium too. To do some resist on the pattern paper, I thought that would look really cool. And then of course the brayer. Now, as I got everything out, I can definitely see where you could do like an hour's worth of different backgrounds, let them dry. Like, no point in getting all this out to do one background. That's silly to me. So you're gonna see me do a few in the video. Obviously I'm gonna speed it up a little bit, put some music to it. I'll stop it if I need to, but not a lot of instructions to this. Mostly just kind of play and have fun. So I like that idea. But if I need to, I'll kind of walk you through a few things. Actually, we'll probably do the first one together so you can kind of see how this goes. And we're going to start out just on white cardstock. So let me kind of get a few things set up here, decide what I'm going to use for our first print, and then I'll kind of walk you through that process of how to do it. Okay, so for the first one we're going to keep it simple, just use a couple of things of paint here. I kind of like blue and brown together. Now typically you don't need a lot of paint, and you don't need to use super expensive paint. So I have craft paint, and I have, let me mix this up quick. Make sure. I have some craft paint, I have some artist grade acrylic paint, I have, like this one is a really cheap grade paint, it's Michael's brand, but it's only like $3, so that's cool. I'm not looking for something that's super light fast here, so that'll work. Now basically you just use your brayer to kind of move this color around. Now with the brown you have to be careful not to add too much and not to add too many colors, because if you do you're going to get a yucky kind of mud look. So now I'm just going to make some impressions in here, and I can kind of see those bubbles already. I don't think that will bug me too bad. Now remember, with my particular style of crafting, I never use the sheet as is. I'm always cutting it up. So for me, I don't have to have a lot of rhyme and reason. See, that'll be fun to use later on. A lot of rhyme and reason to my pattern. I can just kind of go with it and it's all good. I think I'll put a couple of masks in here. Don't really like the mask all that much on the white cardstock because the white is too too much of a contrast. But I thought it would look really cool on the pattern paper. And you just lay it down, and I did not get it very well to the edge, but it'll be okay. And then you just kind of smooch it down, rub it all over, and then pull it back to see what you have. And isn't that fun? The one thing I really like about it is that you end up with a really thin layer of paint, so that means it dries really quickly. So that's awesome. I can just set that aside, let it dry. Now I could go back over and do other things on there, but I don't really need to. So then I can just pull up these die cuts. How fun is that? Look at that, those are awesome. Now I still have stuff left on here. So now I can go back with just a piece of deli paper or another piece of cardstock, smooch it all down. Now I'll probably use this one piece of deli paper over and over again. And I can get extra prints out of that. So now to clean it up, you just use a little water and paper towels. Of course, now that I got it wet, I could put watercolor paper down here and get more prints, but I think I'll just leave it as is and clean it up. So that's kind of the basics for using your Gelli plate. Now I'm going to go ahead and do a whole bunch of other printing, and if I need to, I'll break in, but the process is pretty much the same all the way along. As always, if you have any questions, just post them down below, and you'll be able to see pictures and stuff on the blog. And if you're watching this on YouTube, there'll be a link to the blog. Okay, so there's some of my first go around with the Gelli plate. Some things turned out well, some things I was like, oh, that probably wasn't very good. I actually really liked this one before I put the extra layer on there. Now it feels like I covered up too much of the fun stuff in back. So, lesson learned. I really like this one. I really like the print on the black. I really like this one where you do multiple layers, and I could see doing even more on top of this. These two actually are two of my favorites. This one right here, really, and I knew before I got started that I would probably like the ghosted prints, which is what this is called, better than the initial print. This is a fun paper in that it's already got some embossed areas, so some resisted areas, so that would be cool. This was the ghosted print from this one, which was I was really excited about doing, and then I picked a piece of paper that was way too light in color to be able to see the print. And I thought, well, maybe I'll go back and I can add in some dark ink and it'll no, it didn't work out, so I'll have to probably redo this one at some point. Just too light. If it had been a darker brown color, that would have worked. So lots to learn there, but all of these prints, except for probably this one, are usable prints. These are things that I would cut up and use for tag art, for mixed media pieces, for ATCs, so that'll be fun. I'm sure there'll be a few more. I actually love these little pieces as well. I could totally use these on cards or, like I said, ATCs or tags, or a mixed media piece, a large piece. These are really cool, so I'll keep those as well. I wanted to do one last thing. Remember I said I wanted to use some mixed media, some gel medium to create a resist. And I decided I wanted to use some of these pieces where I was just rolling off the brayer to create a resist, and then you can add other things on top. So let's do that real quick before we wrap up this video. Okay, so I did a little quick stamping on them because I wanted something else to be able to see through the resist as well as just the paint itself. So I'm actually going to do a couple of things here, or well, we're going to do these so I can show you kind of the process, and then on the blog there'll be more examples because I can see I'm just going to keep going, but the video might get a little bit long if I just keep going and going and going. So we'll go ahead and do this last little piece here. The process is pretty much the same as with paint. You're just laying down something other than paint on your work surface there. And I'm going to use a couple of stencils. Now you can kind of see it there because it's not dried yet, but that heavy gel will dry clear, and then I'll be able to come back in here and actually add in some extra color, obviously paint, to reveal that resist. If I was working on pattern paper, which I'm going to do that as well, I could use ink then as well, but once I put the paint on there, then it's not absorbent anymore. So now I'm going to use this side of my stencils real quick on these last two pieces. Yeah, I need a bigger work surface. I need to get the Gelli plate out here real quick. Transfer that image quick. Also a nice way to clean up your stencils. And again, it's going to be hard to see until I add in some additional color. to reveal that resist. But I love, 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 love doing resists. So I knew that was going to be something that I was really going to want to do with the Gelli plate. So after these dry, I'll add some more color so you can see the resist pieces, and I'll post all of that on the blog for you to see. Make sure if you use something like a gel medium on your stencils, clean it up, because that stuff will set rock hard and ruin your stencils. If you have any questions about anything I did, please be sure to let me know. I'm always happy to help. And like I said, there'll be pictures and all that kind of stuff on the blog. Sometimes it works out exactly how I planned, but sometimes there's a learning curve with everything there is. So I encourage you to pull out the last tool you bought and use it and see what your results are. So again, I'm Jeree Parks with Everyday Moodlings, and I look forward to seeing you next time with a brand new video.